Today, we're going to make a pasta dish that's very similar to Alla Gricia, but it has a delicious spring twist. Diving into the ingredients, very simple. We're going to need some pasta. We're going to use farfalle. You could use whatever pasta you like, honestly. What makes this like Gricia is we're going to need guanciale. You could use bacon if you want or pancetta, but definitely try to get guanciale if you can. And now the spring ingredients are peas, basil, a little bit of lemon juice, and then we're going to throw some cheese in there as well. The guanciale is what makes this really a Gricia. It's the basis of the sauce. We're going to render this down and use that fat as the sauce base. I like to just cut off kind of the seasoning on the outside of the fat. I find that it burns in my pan and I don't really like the taste of it, but if you could find guanciale that doesn't have that on the outside, you don't need to do this step. I try to leave as much of the fat as possible, that way it can render down. And then we're going to cut this up into bite-sized pieces. Try to cut up more than you think you're going to need because it's going to really render down to nothing and you want as much of that fat in there as possible. Once that guanciale is cut up, we're going to throw it into a pan, not heated up at all. This is completely cold. I'm going to put it in my stainless steel all-clad here that has high sides because we're going to toss the pasta in this later, and now just get it on the heat on very low. I'm going to make a little ice water here on the side while that's happening because first we're going to blanch our peas. This water is basically boiling. You don't need to get it any hotter, but I'm going to pour those frozen peas in and just let them sit in there for about 30 seconds. Once that happens, you can see they turn a much brighter green. Pull those out, throw them into the ice water, and just let that sit until the end of the dish. You could use the same water here for the pasta, so you don't need to change it. You can see at this point the guanciale is browning a little bit on the bottom of the pan. That's totally fine. That's why we're keeping it mid-low. That way it's not burning. If you burn it, it's going to taste bitter throughout the rest of your dish, but let that keep going and move it around. If you think it's getting a little too burnt, add a little bit of oil to help it out, but you shouldn't need to. While that continues to cook, we're going to do the only other prep we need to do here, and that's going to cut up some basil. You don't even need to do this. You could just rip it up by hand if you want, but I'm going to chiffonade it. Put the bigger leaves on the bottom, smaller leaves inside, and roll it up as tight as you can get, and then just cut it into nice thin strips. I think this looks a little nicer, and I think the flavors come out a little more, but you do not need to do that. Throw that off to the side. I'm going to use some bigger leaves also to just chuck into the pasta. And now we're ready to do the rest of the work here. By the time you finish that, this guanciale has been cooking for maybe 10-15 minutes. You can see a good amount of oils rendered out. You don't want to burn it, so just continue watching it. And this is probably 2 or 3 minutes away, so I'm going to drop that pasta. And after the pasta's been in for maybe 1 or 2 minutes, we're going to grab a cup of that pasta water and we're going to throw it into the guanciale. This right here is as far as I'm going to take mine. If you want to get it a little more crispy, that's totally fine, but now we're going to add in that 1 cup of pasta water, which is going to stop the hard cooking. It will continue to render a little bit because that is hot water, and we're leaving the heat on around medium, but just use that water now to scrape up all the bits of fond on the bottom of the pan. By the time the pasta's done cooking, you should have enough of this left, so you could let it simmer and reduce by about half over that time. If it looks like it's going too quickly, just turn the heat off, which is what I did, but this is what you're left with. It looks separated at this point, but that is totally fine. We're going to add in all that pasta right now, more of that starchy water. I'm also going to add in a tablespoon of butter, and the sauce is going to come back together perfectly. You don't need to worry about what it looked like at that stage. As long as you have the water and the oil ready to go, the rest of it will come together. So throw that basil in, all those peas. I put around half of the peas, but I will wind up using all of them. And then the juice of 1 whole lemon, and just start to mix this together. Once you see it start to really incorporate well, that's when I added the rest of the peas. You can add as many as you want, but I'm going to now turn this heat completely off, and we're going to start to add cheese in. The same way you would make a pasta alla Gricia. First, I'm going to add a little more of that pasta water to make sure that there's enough in there to melt the cheese and not just clump it up. But now the heat is off, and we're going to add that cheese in little by little. I'm going to do 3 or 4 little hand sprinkles at this point and start to mix that together. If you do it in smaller batches, you'll be better off and not clump. If you want to add it all, that's also totally fine. It's not going to really change the taste. You may just have bigger pieces of cheese left over. Keep mixing that all together. Add a little more cheese if you want it, and you can see by the end everything is beautifully coated. There's no runny sauce. There's not separated oil on the bottom. It should look like a cohesive pasta dish that now as we plate it, you can see the sauce is coating every noodle perfectly. The farfalle have so many nooks and crannies for that sauce also, which is great. That's kind of why I like it for this dish. You could top it with anything you want at this point, but I'm going to add a little more of that basil, a little bit of the cheese, and then as always, I like to add a little touch of extra virgin olive oil to bring it all together. And that is your dish. This came together super simply. After you let the guanciale render down for about 10 or 15 minutes, this all comes together in about 10 minutes. So this is about 30 minutes total. And now let's give this a taste test. You could really tell it is based in a Gricia, but it does have those spring flavors with the peas, the freshness of the basil, and the lemon juice. It's a fun way to elevate a simple Roman pasta dish and give it a fun little spring twist. Trust me, it's worth it.